I'm Jerry Hancock. Thanks for joining us. I'm talking with Paul Newton, who's a good friend and an old Men in Balance alumni, I guess you'd say.
Emphasis on the word old.
Talk a little bit, Paul, about your experience with Men in Balance and a little bit about the group and how you felt about the group and all of that.
Well, like we were saying a moment ago, it's been a quick 15 years since I met you.
Yeah.
I was reading a paper, and your photo was on the paper, and there was an article about Men in Balance. That was 2009, and I was struggling with my spirituality. I'd been raised in a cult when I was a young man, and that messed me up pretty good. And I'd had a happy and productive life, but I had a lot of questions about my faith and a lot of unresolved anger about what had happened to me as a young man. And church had been something I had avoided for a while when I read your article. And the article tugged at me a little bit. It made me think that maybe conversation with you and getting involved with Men in Balance might be a path to repair some issues that I had in my heart. And so as I recall, I reached out to you, and I think I did that when I was in Vermont. I was up there, my mom was sick before she passed, and we talked a little bit about meeting, getting to know each other a little, and we did when I came back home. And that led to me getting involved in Men in Balance, led to, a deep friendship between the two of us that's now 15 years old, 15 years long already. And, I used the conversation I had with you and others in Men in Balance as a healing tool and a safe place where there could be conversation without criticism. I think we had the rule that what was said in that room stayed in that room, and we had a lot of good folks that showed up and spoke from the heart. And again, for me, it was a transformational tool that helped me get beyond a lot of the problems that I had. I got reconnected with Davidson United Church. I met Jody Seymour, who was senior pastor at the time, got to be friends with him. And I've always been kind of a pilgrim spiritualist. I kind of weave back and forth through life with how I feel and how I handle issues. I don't think that'll ever change. But very long story short, Men in Balance was that healing organization that helped me get from where I was to where I needed to be.
Yeah, well, talk a little bit about the group itself and what you experienced when the group would meet and talk openly about their stuff.
Well, at the time we were meeting upstairs at DUNC, and as I recall, we were having conversation in lieu of, I was having conversation in lieu of going to a Bible study or something of that nature because it was a better fit for me.
Okay.
As the word spread, including me talking to some of my friends, we had more guys that would show up. Some of them had, spiritual issues, some of them had family issues, some of them had romantic issues. But what I saw and what I was pleased with was the candor that was shown in the room, the conversation that occurred between guys that normally wouldn't. As you've taught me many different ways, we guys tend to be hard-headed and keep everything bottled up. And it's hard to find a place where you can talk openly with other guys of the same old school mindset and feel that they can speak from the heart and not worry that, number one, that secret might leak outside the door, and number two, not worry that the guys in the room wouldn't receive that information openly and try to help them.
Were you surprised that the guys were as candid as they were and open about talking about their stuff?
It's not something I had been exposed to before.
Yeah.
I came from old school. I loved my dad. He was and is my hero, even though he's been gone for a long time. But I was raised to think that as a guy You know, we had to fix things, we had to suck it up, we had to be the leader in the family, we had to be that tough guy that almost never cried and kept your feelings inside so that the outside facade was always crusty and resilient.
Yeah. Now, my recollection is that you were, as you said, going through some spiritual questioning and that sort of thing. And my recollection is some of the group challenged some of your thinking, and certainly I did.
Mm-hmm.
And wonder how you felt about all that.
Well, good criticism, you know, constructive criticism is always a good thing, I believe. And the great thing about having open conversation is you get differing opinions. You don't always hear what you want to hear. Sometimes you hear what you need to hear. And just because people disagreed with me, I was in a meeting yesterday where there was spirited conversation and people disagreed with me. That'll never change.
Mm-hmm.
But especially when you're in leadership positions. But again, having a safe place to have open conversation where someone can look you in the eye and say, I think you're wrong and here's why. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But it was always done respectfully. There was not a level of verbal abuse or confrontation. Everything that I heard in those rooms from those gentlemen were always based on trying to help from the station that they were at in their life.
Yeah. One last question. What would you recommend for folks who are sort of thinking about maybe joining a group but have some reservations? What would you say?
Number one, I'd say talk to you. And I mean that sincerely. If I hadn't talked with you, if you hadn't given me a confidence level that that group was a group that was, number one, safe, number two, open, number three, probably could help me, I wouldn't have gone. I would have considered it an extension of the church, and the church left a pretty bad taste in my mouth from when I was a young man. So you start with most things in life, having a conversation with someone that you trust. And that might be the bridge to one more conversation that can lead to unexpected places. I didn't know I was going to get involved in Men in Balance, and I didn't know I was going to stay involved with Men in Balance as long as I did. But it was very, very helpful to me. And it started with talking to you. And I didn't know about you until I saw your face in the paper.